Ladies and gentlemen, you see, life is not a race. Though many are breathless trying to reach a finish line that doesn't even exist. They run because someone else is running, they feel late because someone else arrived. But time is not something you chase, it is something you fall into. Like a river that carries you if you stop trying to swim against it. And yet, people suffer not because life is cruel, because they think they are delayed in a journey whose map they never designed. There is no such thing as being behind when the script of your life is unfolding in precision with something far beyond your logic. What you call delay is often divine protection. What you call missed opportunity is often preparation. What you call failure is often a doorway that was meant to close because the one meant to open still needs you to grow into it. But the mind, it compares. It watches others bloom and forgets that even the moon waxes and wanes before it becomes full. Everything in existence has its own rhythm. A seed cannot bloom just because the flower next to it already has. It must wait for its own season, and in the same way, your life is not misaligned. It is just not meant to move by your impatience. There is no cosmic alarm clock ringing to remind you that you're late. Only the inner noise that convinces you that something is missing. But what if nothing is missing? What if this silence you're resenting is the echo of something sacred being built inside you? Your heartbreaks, your loneliness, your setbacks, do not discard them. They are not distractions from your destiny, they are the sculpting tools of it. You are not a victim of timing, you are a vessel of it. To feel lost is only to forget that the path is not always visible but still real. The sun does not doubt its rise. Just because the night is long, in the same way you must not doubt your place in this existence, just because your moment hasn't arrived in the form you wanted. This universe doesn't forget, it remembers every tear, every prayer, every silent yearning, and it places them gently into a plan that ripens not when you demand it, but when you are ready to carry it with grace. It is only the ego that wants everything now. It is the soul that knows waiting is not weakness, it is wisdom when you stop asking a why not yet and start asking, what is this moment asking of me? Something shifts. You stop living in anxiety and start living in awareness. And then the time you thought you lost becomes the time you most needed. Not because life paused, but because you did, and in that pause you realigned. You are not behind, you are just witnessing a part of the process that does not look like progress. But even the roots grow downward before a tree grows upward. Even the womb is dark before birth comes to light. So let your journey unfold as it must, not as you wish it would, because what is aligned will not miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. So sit quietly, not in laziness, but in listening, not in fear, but in trust. The divine is not watching a clock, it is shaping your becoming, moment by moment, with perfect timing. And once you realize that, you'll stop rushing and start receiving and because you gave up, but because you finally allowed. Existence unfolds on its own rhythm. Rushing only creates resistance because the moment you try to push life faster than it intends to move, you are no longer flowing with its current but swimming upstream against something ancient, something intelligent, something far beyond your limited perception. And in that struggle, you begin to lose your breath, your balance, your clarity, and most of all, your peace. For peace only comes when you realize that life was never meant to be wrestled into shape, but surrendered to with awareness and grace. And the more you chase time, the more time slips through your grasp like water, because it was never yours to control, only yours to witness, to walk beside and to welcome without force. You see, every leaf falls in its own time. No tree ever complains that the wind came late or the sun rose too slow. The stars are not in competition with one another to shine first. Nor does the moon question the sky about why it must wait to be full. Yet humans, so intoxicated by their idea of speed, of success, of urgency, forget that the universe has been creating for billions of years without ever needing to rush. And perhaps the reason you feel stuck is not because you are stuck, but because you are trying to sprint through a season that was meant to soften you, hold you, prepare you, and invite you deeper into yourself before it ever reveals what's next. Stillness is not stagnation, it is sacred preparation, the silence before the music begins, the breath before the bow releases the arrow. But if you cannot befriend the stillness, you will always mistake it for punishment, and in that restless need to get somewhere, to become someone, to prove something, you miss the beauty of what is already unfolding in this very breath. this very hour, this very chapter of your life, which may seem slow but is actually exact, precise and divinely aligned with 1,000 invisible forces working in your favor, even if your eyes cannot yet see the proof. Impatience is born from fear. The fear that life will leave you behind, that you'll miss your chance, that you'll waste your time, but how can you miss what was never yours to begin with? And how can you waste time when time itself is the teacher sculpting you into the one who will finally be ready to hold what you once thought you deserved the moment you asked for it? Not realizing that desire alone does not equal readiness. That craving something does not mean you are capable of carrying it without it crushing you. The flower does not open because it wants to impress the garden. It blooms when the light, the soil, the moisture, the temperature all align in their perfect harmony, and you too are like that. Not meant to burst into blossom just because others have. Not meant to rush through your winter just because spring looks prettier on someone else's timeline. You are meant to become slowly, wisely, deeply, and in your own way that cannot be compared, copied or calibrated against another's rhythm. For your existence is not a duplicate of anyone else's. It is an original unfolding of the infinite. But the mind wants shortcuts. It craves certainty. It demands signs and deadlines and metrics of progress. Yet none of these can grasp the mystery of divine timing. Because something is always happening beneath the surface, the roots are always deepening before the bloom ever dares to show. And every moment you spend wishing for the next is a moment lost to the miracle already happening in this one. So stop fighting the pace of your path, stop measuring your journey with someone else's ruler, stop telling yourself you're late when perhaps you're exactly on time for a destiny that's unfolding in a language your mind does not yet speak, but your soul understands perfectly. Cause the more you force, the more you fracture your connection to the flow, and the more you surrender, the more life meets you with a kind of effortless grace that cannot be manufactured through hustle, only received through harmony. Let it be slow, let it be quiet, let it be uncertain, because it is in that very slowness, that very uncertainty, that the deepest transformation is taking place, not loudly but silently, not dramatically but intentionally. And you will not be able to see it all now, but one day you will look back and realize that everything that felt delayed was actually right on time, and all that resistance you carried only delayed your own joy. For existence never needed you to rush, it only needed you to trust. Comparison is the root of anxiety. Your path is not meant to mirror another's, because the moment you begin to measure your life against someone else's highlight reel, you start to abandon your own depth, your own truth, your own sacred unfolding, and instead you trade it for a shallow imitation of a street code. What you think success should look like, forgetting that every soul carries a blueprint uniquely its own, carved by experience, pain, growth, silence, and seasons that cannot be copied or duplicated no matter how similar they may seem from the outside. And in that forgetting you shrink, you judge. Under forgetting you shrink, you panic, wondering if you're enough, if you're late, if you're failing, all because you've allowed someone else's reflection to distort your own vision. The anxiety doesn't begin with the journey, it begins with the moment you assume yours should look like this, that your pace should match their speed, that your joy should arrive wrapped in the same packaging. But life is not a factory line. It is a wild, unpredictable and intelligent force that reveals itself in its own rhythm. And when you resist that by constantly scanning left and right, wondering why others have what you don't, you forget that nothing genuine ever grows under the pressure of imitation, and nothing sacred ever blossoms from a heart that is busy envying instead of embodying. You were not born to be a replica. You were born to be a revelation, something that has never existed before and will never exist again in the exact same way. And yet, the moment you look over the fence, the moment you scroll through curated images, the moment you hear another's applause and assume it makes your silence less worthy, you plant seeds of insecurity in soil that was once fertile with self-trust, and those seeds, if watered too long, grow into doubt, into fear, into a chronic sense that you are perpetually behind, in a race that was never meant to be run side by side. Every time you compare, you cheat yourself of the present moment, you rob your soul of its own flavor. You dilute your authenticity for the illusion of sameness and then wonder why you feel unfulfilled, disconnected or exhausted chasing something that never truly belonged to you. Because comparison is a thief that does not steal possessions, it steals presence. and when you're not present in your own life, you miss the exact miracles that were designed just for you. The mountain does not envy the ocean, the moon does not compete with the sun, the tree does not apologize for blooming later than the flower beside it. And yet humans, conditioned from birth to perform, to win, to outpace, fall into the trap of thinking worth is something to be earned through sameness instead of something to be embraced through uniqueness. And the more you chase what someone else has, the further you move from what you were always meant to discover within your own being. You are not a chapter in someone else's book. You are the author of a story still being written. And just because another's plot twist arrived before yours doesn't mean your moment is missing. It means it's still unfolding in a way that only makes sense when you stop needing it to look like this, see, and start honoring the tempo, the terrain, and the tone of your own sacred narrative, even if it's slower, quieter, harder, or less glamorous, because truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful, it only needs to be lived. And when you finally stop comparing, something beautiful happens. Peace returns, clarity sharpens, joy rises, not because everything becomes perfect, but because you no longer expect your life to fit into someone else's mold. And in that surrender, you begin to see the divine timing, the hidden blessings, invisible progress that comparison blinded you from seeing all along. And that is when you begin to live, not through others, but through yourself, not for validation, but for truth, not to catch up, but to come home. So let them run, let them shine, let them bloom in their own time, while you sink into your own depth, into your own stillness, into your own knowing that you are not meant to mirror anyone else's light. You are meant to find your in the darkness, and when you do, you'll see that nothing was ever missing. You were simply too busy watching others to witness the radiance rising within you all along. And when that happens, you'll no longer need to compare, because you will have remembered who you truly are. Delays are not denials, or what is meant for you is a line beyond your comprehension, because what appears to you as a pause, a setback, a silence is often not life withholding, but life arranging, aligning, preparing what you cannot yet perceive from where you stand. And in that blindness, you begin to assume something is wrong, that you've been forgotten, that the doors are closed forever. But in truth, it is not rejection, it is refinement, not abandonment, but orchestration at a depth your logical mind will never fully grasp. Because the divine does not work on human timelines, it works through soul seasons, through energetic readiness, through unseen layers of becoming that cannot be rushed or forced without distortion. You see, the mind always wants instant outcomes, instant answers, instant rewards. But what is real, what is meaningful, what is lasting, often comes slow, and in that slowness there is a purpose, a design, a hidden grace that is stretching you not to punish you, but to prepare you to carry what you once thought you were ready for, but were not yet fully able to sustain without it slipping through your hands. And so life gives you what you can hold, not what you demand. And sometimes the waiting is the mercy, the delay is the wisdom, the unanswered prayer is the protection you didn't know you needed. When you ask and don't receive, it doesn't mean the answer is no. It may simply mean not yet or not this way. So not until you grow into the version of yourself who will honor the blessing instead of breaking under the weight of it. And that's the part most people resist. The idea that delay is not lack, but love disguised, that timing is not cruelty but care, that the detours you call unfair are often sacred redirections from things that would have taken you away from the deeper path you're actually meant to walk. But the ego doesn't want to hear that, the ego wants now. And when now doesn't come, it calls life unfair. But what is fairness in the eyes of the infinite? Is it getting what you want on command, or is it receiving what is true in divine measure when your soul is ripe to receive it? Because you cannot harvest before the fruit is ready and expect sweetness. You cannot pull the flower from the soil before it blooms and expect beauty. And so too, you cannot force your timing upon a life that is unfolding in accordance with something far more vast, far more intelligent, far more interconnected than your short-sighted expectations can comprehend. And perhaps, just perhaps, that delay is the exact moment your roots are deepening, your vision is sharpening, your heart is being softened, and your soul is being shaped into a vessel strong enough to carry the magnitude of what's coming, not in bits and pieces, but in fullness. And if you receive it too soon before the inner foundation is strong, you will self-sabotage it, you will doubt it, or worse, you will lose it. because your inner world was still operating on fear, urgency and lack, and the divine does not send eternal things into temporary containers. So wait, but don't just wait passively, wait consciously, wait with faith, not frustration, wait with presence, not panic, wait with an open heart, knowing that what's yours will not pass you, what is aligned will not abandon you, what is written for you will not erase itself. Because the universe doesn't operate on forgetfulness. It operates on alignment. Is not just about the destination showing up. It's about you showing up as the one who is finally ready to receive it without losing yourself in the process. Delay is not the enemy, it is the divine whispering, trust me, not now but soon, not this way but better, not as it was meant. And if you can quiet the noise long enough to hear that whisper, you will stop feeling like you failed and start feeling like you're in the middle of something sacred, something unseen but certain, something that is building you even when it looks like nothing is moving. Because stillness is not the absence of activity, it is the ground from which true destiny rises. And when it finally arrives, not in a rush, not in desperation, but in perfect synchronicity, you will understand why it took so long. You will realize you were never waiting for it. You are being shaped by it. And in that understanding, you will no longer fear delays, but trust them. And sacred pauses are written pauses, divine pauses that prepared you for a kind of blessing you couldn't have imagined. Because it was never denied, it was always aligned beyond your comprehension. The universe is not late, your awareness is just catching up because what you call delay, what you label as absence, what you interpret as misalignment is often just the echo of your own unreadiness, trying to interpret a rhythm that was never out of tune to begin with. But because your vision is shaped by time, by conditioning, by expectation, you assume that what hasn't arrived yet must not exist, that what hasn't unfolded in front of your limited eyes must not be happening at all, when in reality, the universe has already moved, the path has already shifted, the seed has already been planted, you just haven't expanded enough yet to perceive its unfolding. You see, your life is not governed by the ticking of a clock, it is shaped by the maturing of your soul. And while the ego counts minutes and milestones, the soul listens for alignment, for energy, for readiness. And that readiness has nothing to do with how badly you want something, and everything to do with how deeply you're willing to evolve to hold it. And until your inner space is prepared to match the vibration of what is destined for you, the universe holds it gently in its hands, not withholding it out of cruelty, but protecting it from arriving too early when you might mistake it, misuse it, or miss it completely because your eyes were open but your awareness was closed. Just because you can't see, it doesn't mean it isn't real. Just because you don't understand it, doesn't mean it isn't true. Because life doesn't move according to your certainty. It moves according to your surrender, and when you release the need to control the pace, to predict the moment, to demand evidence before trust, you begin to realize that everything is right on schedule. Not according to your clock, but according to consciousness. And the more you fight that truth, the more you spiral into impatience, into anxiety, into the illusion that you've been forgotten, when in fact you're simply being invited to wake up. Wake up to the subtle, to the sacred, to the slow miracles that unfold not in lightning strikes but in quiet whispers, in gentle nudges, in the spaces between your frantic thoughts where peace has always lived. And when you finally slow down enough to feel that presence, yeah, you'll understand that the delay wasn't punishment. It was protection, that the gap wasn't failure. It was formation, that the pause wasn't the absence of movement, was the alignment of movement with meaning, so that what comes doesn't just arrive. Because there is a difference between seeing and seeing clearly, between hearing and truly listening. And the universe doesn't just want you to receive, it wants you to recognize, to embody, to become. And recognition requires awareness, and awareness requires stillness, and stillness requires trust. And trust is what bridges the gap between what is already done in the unseen and what has yet to manifest in the seen. And the only thing standing in between is the time it takes for your awareness to catch up to what the universe already knows is yours. And sometimes what's needed isn't for things to move faster, but for you to become still enough to see what's already here, for you to become conscious of the blessings you've been stepping over, blind to them in your rush toward the future, unaware that the very thing you think is missing has been circling you all along. waiting for the moment your awareness grows wide enough, deep enough, quiet enough to finally embrace it with open hands, open eyes, open heart, open… So let go of the need to rush the divine, to speed up what is unfolding in a language older than time. Let go of the belief that your desires are the only compass worth trusting, and instead begin to notice how much has already changed within you, how much has already healed, how much has already shifted while you were too busy staring at the clock. And when you finally turn inward, when you finally sit with presence instead of pressure, you'll see that the universe was never late. It was you who needed time to grow into the version of yourself who could finally see it. And when you do, you'll laugh, not at yourself but with life, because you'll finally understand that nothing was broken, nothing was delayed, nothing was out of place. You were never left behind, you were being brought forward in the exact way you were meant to be, not by force but by grace, not by urgency but by unfolding. And in that unfolding, you'll realize that the timing was not wrong, your perception was just ripening. And now that it has, you can receive what has been waiting for you all along. Stillness is not stagnation, it is preparation in divine disguise, because what looks like nothing happening on the outside is often the most sacred becoming on the inside. Foundations are being built, roots are growing deep into the unseen. And while the world might rush ahead, clamor for results and crave visible progress, you are being asked to wait, to listen, to remain. Not because you are forgotten, but because you are being forced. Not because life has paused, but because life has entered the holy space of refinement where movement is so quiet, so internal, so precise that only awareness can perceive it and only trust can carry you through it without panic or doubt. The modern mind, addicted to noise and speed, sees stillness as failure, silence as absence and delay as punishment. But the soul knows better. The soul remembers that nothing profound is ever rushed, that the caterpillar must dissolve completely in the cocoon before the wings can form, that the seed must be buried in darkness before the bloom can rise. And in that darkness, in that holy stillness, something ancient and intelligent is taking shape, not in chaos but in rhythm, not in urgency but in order, not in your timing but in divine timing that does not bend to your impatience but calls you into surrender again and again. To the outside world, you may look stuck to your old self, you may feel lost, but something deeper within you knows. This is not the end, this is not stagnation, this is the sacred space between what was and what will be, the threshold where identities die and destinies begin, the womb of transformation where nothing is visible but everything is essential. And if you can stay present with it, breathe through it, honor it instead of escaping it, you will emerge not with just answers but with alignment, not with just results but with readiness. And that readiness cannot be faked, forced or fabricated. It can only be received. Stillness is not weakness, it is strength choosing not to perform, not to prove, not to panic, but to pause, to listen, to align with something higher than the noise of comparison and the chaos of urgency, because what is meant for you will not pass you. And what is growing within you will not be rushed. And when you stop fighting the quiet, you start discovering the gold buried in the silence, the clarity, the grounding, the whispers of wisdom that only reveal themselves when the world fades into the background and your soul becomes audible again. And in this divine pause, you will notice how much healing has already occurred. How many of your former selves have already dissolved? How many unseen shifts have happened while you were busy calling this a nothing, when in truth it was everything? Because preparation is often invisible until the moment of emergence. And what looks like a long wait is often a concentrated acceleration of becoming, where the divine is not taking from you, but giving to you space, depth, inner capacity, so you can receive not just what you want, but what you're meant to hold without breaking. You are not failing, you are forming. And though you may not see the fruit yet, the roots are anchoring, the soil is nourishing, the environment is adjusting to hold you when the season shifts. And if you move too soon, you risk stepping out of alignment. You risk uprooting the very transformation that was meant to stabilize you for what's coming. So stay in the stillness, not with fear, but with reverence, knowing that this is not a pause in your story. It is a part of the story that prepares you for the pages you've been praying for. And eventually the stillness will break. Not with chaos, but with clarity, not with noise, but with knowing, not because you forced it to, but because you allowed it to unfold without resistance. And when that moment comes, when the outer matches the inner, when the seen catches up to the unseen, you will understand why it had to be this way, why the silence was so sacred, why the wait was so worth it. And you will no longer resent the stillness. You will thank it for protecting what you were becoming when you couldn't yet see who you truly were. So let it be quiet, let it be still, let it feel empty if it must, but no, deeply, fiercely, unshakably, that you are not in the dark, you are in the depth, not in a void but in a vessel, not abandoned but aligned. And when it is time, when it is ready, when you are ready, when you are ready, this stillness will open into something so expansive, so clear, so purposeful that you will realize it was never stagnation. It was sacred preparation dressed in divine disguise.